many other
this is right, erupt.
Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from London. I'm Ollie Barrett, and coming up we've got updates for you on stories developing around the world. There is again a special focus on Afghanistan. We'll start with the headlines. Anti-Pakistan protests have been held across Afghanistan to condemn what demonstrators say is Pakistan's meddling in the country's affairs. The Taliban fire shots to disperse one rally in Kabul. The WHO says 90% of health facilities across Afghanistan risk closure as early as this week because of a lack of foreign funding. Six Palestinians escaped from an Israeli prison through a tunnel dug beneath a sink, triggering a massive manhunt for the group that includes a prominent ex-militant. British Prime Minister has chaired a meeting of his cabinet and is getting to his feet in the House of Commons as we speak to announce a tax hike to fund Britain's social care system. Cuba becomes the first country to vaccinate children from the age of 2 against COVID-19 using homegrown jabs that are not recognised by the World Health Organization. And Myanmar's shadow government unveils a new strategy to oppose military rule. The military seized power in a coup in February. And we'll start with the anti-Pakistan protests that have erupted in Kabul. People have been shouting slogans and holding signs asking Pakistan not to meddle in the affairs of their country. The rallies have at times turned violent. The Taliban resorted to firing shots into the air to disperse the crowds. Local media were reporting the presence of dozens of women at the protests, rallying outside the Pakistan embassy, holding banners and chanting against what they feel is meddling by Islamabad. These protests follow the visit of Pakistan's powerful intelligence chief, Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid, to Kabul. He met with the top Taliban leadership, including co-founder Abdul Ghani Baradar. The National Resistance, based in Panjshir, has accused Pakistan of providing military and financial aid to the Taliban. In recent days, we've also seen rallies supporting the National Resistance Front forces of Afghanistan's northern Panjshir province. Protests have been reported in Ghazni, Faryab, Mazar-e Sharif. The head of the armed resistance force, Ahmad Massoud, called for a countrywide uprising against the Taliban. WION correspondent Anas Malik, who's been continuously reporting from Afghanistan, sent this report from Kabul.
A day after Taliban overran the province of Panjshir, protests like these have broken out in the capital city of Kabul. The protesters have been demanding freedom. They have been chanting anti-Taliban slogans, anti-Pakistan slogans, and they've been chanting pro-resistance slogans as well. They've been chanting Allahu Akbar, that means God is great, and they are demanding freedom. Men and women, both in numbers, have come out on the streets of Kabul. They were arrested as well. We earlier saw Taliban resorting to use of heavy aerial fire to disperse these protesters. Anas Malik in Kabul, Afghanistan for WION World is One.
The US Secretary of State says the Taliban has reiterated a pledge to allow Afghans to freely depart the country. Antony Blinken says the State Department is working with the Taliban to facilitate additional charter flights from Kabul for people seeking to leave Afghanistan. Blinken's been speaking at a joint news conference with Qatar's top diplomats and defence officials. He says the US has been in contact with the Taliban to work out arrangements for charter flights.
Afghans at risk. We've also been engaging with the Taliban on this topic, including in recent hours. They've said that they will let people with travel documents freely depart. We will hold them to that.
Qatar says the Kabul airport will reopen soon, opening an important corridor for Afghans seeking to leave. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defence Secretary Lloyd Austin are in Doha for a visit after Qatar assisted the American evacuation. Qatar was the transit point thousands of people evacuated from Afghanistan in the final weeks of the US troop withdrawal. The US on Monday facilitated the evacuation of 4 Americans by land from Afghanistan, the first departures arranged by Washington since that military pullout. Non-governmental organisations estimate that around 600 to 1,300 people are stuck at the airport in Mazar-e-Sharif. With the formal announcement of a Taliban-led government in Afghanistan delayed but potentially imminent, there are reports that Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, one of the Taliban's senior-most leaders and the face of talks in Doha, is potentially being sidelined. Earlier, Reuters, quoting sources, had said that Mullah Baradar would lead the new government in Afghanistan, with Mullah Mohammed Yaqub, the son of late Taliban founder Mullah Omar, and Sheikh Mohammed Abbas Stenexai, taking senior positions in the government. But now, according to a new report, Mullah Mod Hassan Akund instead is being pitched as the new head of state. The same reporting says that Baradar will serve as a deputy under him. Hassan Akund is said to be very close to the Emir Sheikh Hibatullah Akhundzada. Hassan is one of the founding members of the Taliban and the head of the Ribari Shura for over 20 years. He'd also worked as a foreign minister under the Taliban in the 90s. On Monday, the Taliban claimed it had taken Panjshir, the last holdout region of the country, and the bastion of national resistance forces. For over 3 weeks, the Taliban have been running the country from Kabul, but that formal government formation announcement is yet to see the light of day. Invitations have been sent to as many as 6 countries, including Turkey, China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan and Qatar. The Taliban themselves say it's only a matter of a few nights before the government is formally announced.
او دغه اوازې یا د تشویش چې خدای مکه د اسلامي امارت په صفوف کې اختلاف د موضوع ځلېدل داسې نه ده. موږ کوشش کوو چې مشورې جمع کړو، نظرونه واخلو او تصمیم کلک ونیسو چې نظام باثباته منځته راسي، قوي راسي او اسلامي راسي. د خلکو غوښتنه ده، کوشش هم دا وکړو. نو انشاءالله اوس د تخنیکي مسایلو باندې بوخت یو، دا تشویش ته کېږي، حکومت به عنقریب اعلانوي.
But sources tell WION that portfolio allocations remain a key stumbling block and are taking time to resolve. Other frontrunners for senior positions have emerged, but the Taliban have formally attempted to dispel speculation, calling all of this rumours.
And we want to assure the world
ما هیچ تلفات ملکی نداشتیم. عشق سایه به مردم ملکی نرسیده. البته 3 روز میشه یا 4 روز که تلفن‌ها قطع بود و 4 روز شده که مواد غذایی هم در اونجا نرفت. از به خاطر جنگ که راه‌ها در جنگ بود و خطوط نبرد واقع بود. سر از امروز تمام مواد به اونجا میرسه، برق و هر چیزی پس رها میشه و همچنان تلفن‌ها هم به اونجا فعال میشه و اینترنت هم فعالیت خود آغاز میکنه. از اینکه چند روز هموطنان ما در
One British member of parliament says people stranded in Afghanistan who have connections to the UK have faced rape, being shot, torture after missing out on evacuations. The opposition Labour Party's Chris Bryant told the House of Commons he had raised 143 cases of Afghans connected with his constituency with the Foreign Secretary, the Home Secretary and the Defence Secretary. He's urging the government to have a single person to deal with all the Afghan cases being raised.
I've sent 143 Afghans who are connected with my constituency through to the Foreign Secretary and to the Defence Secretary and the Home Secretary. I got them in the wrong order, but anyway, all three of them, because there are three different channels. Can I just urge the Prime Minister to reflect on the idea that has been suggested by countless colleagues on this side, that there should be a single triage point, a single person that deals with all of these, because since I sent in those names, one of them has been shot, one has been raped, and one has been tortured. So people are desperate to try and get the best result for these people. I'm sure the ministers want to help, but at the moment it just feels as if the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, though, claims that single point of contact is already in place.
The whole House sympathises very much with what's happened to the individuals that he describes in Afghanistan, and we are doing our level best to help people as fast as we can. I want the government to focus on helping people with a single point of contact. That's why my honourable friend, the member for Louth and Horncastle, is the person in question.
Boris Johnson's repeatedly been criticised for his handling of the evacuation from Afghanistan and the failure of his government to predict the swift takeover by the Taliban. He's faced condemnation from lawmakers for intelligence and leadership failures over the fall of Kabul. He's admitted the decision by the US to withdraw left Britain with little choice but to pull its own forces out. The opposition's also called for the sacking of his foreign minister, Dominic Raab. The United States and Britain withdrew from Afghanistan last month, and Dominic Raab's admitted both countries misjudged the Taliban's capacity to seize control. The Taliban took Kabul on the 15th of August. The political instability has left Afghanistan in a state of humanitarian crisis. Medical infrastructure is crumbling, and the West is reluctant to send humanitarian aid to Taliban-ruled Afghanistan without assurances. So there are growing fears about how the country will cope with a worsening crisis.
Afghanistan's medical infrastructure is at the risk of falling apart. Hundreds of medical facilities are facing imminent closure. Entities such as the World Bank and US aid are not allowed to deal with the new Taliban government. The WHO's emergency director for the Eastern Mediterranean region, Rick Brennan, has said that some 90% of 2,300 health facilities across the country are at risk of closure as soon as this week.
Project is the backbone of the health system in Afghanistan. So, we understand the constraints that the donors work under. They are looking urgently at options, to keep those health facilities open. And that will be associated with an increase in illness and death, we would expect, and also rolling back the tremendous health gains of the last 20 years if those closures are sustained. So it's a very urgent issue to get clarity on how the financing for those facilities can be reinitiated ASAP.
The World Health Organization is seeking to urgently fill the gap by providing supplies, equipment and financing to at least 500 local health facilities to prevent them from closing. Drought and mass displacement have made matters worse. The United Nations agencies have warned of a looming humanitarian catastrophe. An international aid conference will be held on September 13 to address Afghanistan's spiraling health situation. Global health agencies find it difficult to get supplies into the country via the Taliban-controlled Qatar airport. However, the Kabul airport could soon reopen to receive aid, with the WHO liaising with Qatar for medical deliveries in the next week or so. The next deliveries would include COVID-19 tests and supplies to treat chronic diseases. As of now, medical supplies continue to be flown via the northern city of Mazar-e-Sharif. The WHO has also said that it is exploring overland options via trucks from Pakistan. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
$140 US soldiers are among those who've returned to their home country to be reunited with their families. These soldiers were deployed in Afghanistan for 9 months and were connected with their loved ones at that time via video calls. And so for many it's been a highly emotional reunion.
Technology helps, doing the FaceTime thing and being able to talk to them. Obviously, we had that advantage over the first few years of the GWAT, but it was really tough. But it's all good because we're home now.
We're so excited to have him back home. I know Sadie missed him. I know he missed being home with her and missed seeing the new one.
I think it's amazing. Again, you see pictures, but until you see him and you get to hold him, then it becomes real. So just, super thankful that I have my wife to take care of them. It's one less thing to worry about. I know she's done an awesome job, and I just hope I can give her a break.
We're going to shift our focus to Brazil now, where President Jair Bolsonaro has signed a decree to restrict the powers of social media companies to remove accounts and content from sites. The signed decree aims to change the rules of content moderation on social media. It's a move critics argue could hamper the fight against disinformation and fake news. It also aims to give clarity to the policies of social media companies regarding the cancellation or suspension of accounts. The decree does need to be approved by Congress in order to become law. Bolsonaro says the changing regulations are needed to stop the arbitrary removal of high-profile accounts from social media platforms. He also says the new legislation will help protect freedom of speech for social media users by curtailing the power of tech giants. Bolsonaro announced the decree on the eve of Brazil's Independence Day. His supporters are expected to hold large-scale demonstrations against the country's Congress and Supreme Court, which last month added Bolsonaro's name to a list of people being investigated over the alleged spread of misinformation regarding COVID-19. In July this year, YouTube removed videos from a channel belonging to Bolsonaro for spreading misinformation. Facebook also last year suspended multiple accounts of Bolsonaro's top allies, claiming they were spreading COVID fake news. And we'll call it a wrap for this edition there of WION Live Broadcast from London. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. I'm Ollie Barrett. For more news and updates, do stay tuned to WION World is One.
This is right, erupt.